If you're trying to make sense of the new stamina system in Breezy Autumn, I'm going to break it down for you to understand it better. I'll explain buffs and what they do, and I'm also going to share my analysis of which foods are the best and when to eat them. 2, 4, 6, 8, bog in, don't wait. Before we get all technical with buffs, let me quickly explain what they are. Buffs in games are when you get a temporary boost or increase in power or ability. For example, what if you wanted to swim faster? Well, there's a new buff for that. What about a buff that stops your tools taking damage? You guessed it, there's a new one for that too. More on the rest later on in this video, but before I do, I need to explain debuffs. These have the opposite effect, such as an illness buff when you get stung by a jellyfish or a blooming frilly. It's a limiter, in this case limiting your ability to eat, which may cause you to pass out. The other debuff is the tiredness one, which is when you walk around all hunched over, like me when I haven't had enough coffee in the morning. Let's break down health and stamina. Health is the red bar, whereas stamina or energy is the yellow bar. Just as you run out of breath running for the bus or need to take a break when you're working out in the garden, you tend to have to stop and catch your breath. Such is the yellow bar for stamina or energy. In Dinkum, when you stop the activity, the yellow bar will automatically increase. However, if you push yourself too far, you'll get to the point where the stamina regeneration is stunted and you'll have to wait a much longer time. So make sure you stop yourself just before the yellow bar gets empty, or you'll be a sad looking Dinkum player, leaving yourself exposed to attack. When you take damage from animals, your health meter will drop and, unlike stamina, won't automatically increase. This is where you'll need to turn to foods to get your health back up. Certain foods will help raise your levels back up, known as health regen. Every time this little circle fills up red, it'll fill your bar by a certain amount as dictated by this figure under the half regen buff. It takes 20 seconds to fill up this circle. What sound does a clock make? Tick tock, tick tock. So think of the tick as a trip around the clock. Drinking bottle brush tea or brew gives you 2 times speed regen, which makes this circle fill up twice as fast at 10 seconds. Want it even faster? Well, when you sit down, your health regen rate increases at 4 times the speed, bringing it down to 5 seconds per tick. For this reason, I'd recommend keeping a seat in your pockets for desperate times to make the most of this speed health regen buff. There are some foods that increase the max size of your health bar, like this cooked prime meat. This can be combined with the bottle brush tea or brew. Watch how my health regen is stacked or accumulated with each food, which means I get more health bumps per circle, fill, or tick. Take note of the little number shown inside the circle. The bigger the number, the quicker you gain health. Each food item you eat will keep you full for a certain number of minutes, known as the fullness buff, and you'll max out at 3 eaten food before you're considered too full. Thankfully, what you've eaten is now conveniently shown at the top right of the screen. If you've eaten too much and want to start again, just go to the dunny. You'll feel much better. Where were we? Going to the toilet will wipe the buff slate clean, pun intended. The foods that you eat are shown from right to left with the number of minutes it lasts for below that food. It's worth noting that after your fullness expires for a given food, the buff it provides will drop off. Watch how my regen goes from 6 per tick to 2 per tick as soon as it drops off. There is another hidden buff, which I'll call an eating buff. Every year of your island anniversary, you get a single snag. Eating one of these allows you to increase your food from 3 to 5 foods. I've also tried to eat 5 of these snags, but James has outsmarted us from getting buffs on buffs, so I guess that stops my dream of having 25 eaten foods. Ever notice that new icon when you wake up in the morning in Dinkum? Well, that's your new Wellrested Buff, which lasts for 10 minutes and it gives you stamina regen boost during the morning. Now let's cover off the existing buffs in the game in case you're new to it. Starting off with the most useful ones. The speed up makes you move around faster, so I've got Mrs. G here to compare. Okay, on go after I eat this Lamington, Mrs. G. Ready, set, go. Wrong way. Let's try again. And go. And they're off, and Alexi's taking a good start. Mrs. G's off to the side, coming in from the outside. No, Alexi's still rising in front. Oh, there's a Mururu on the course. Watch out, Mrs. G's trying to catch up. The hunting or attack buff increases how much damage you do to animals. I've set up an environment to test this. Without the buff, with a basic spear, it takes 4 hits to down this roo. With the help of a sausage roll, I can knock out this roo in 3 hits. The defense buff decreases the amount of damage they do to you. I didn't want to run the risk to complete death, so I'll let them bite me a couple of times and see. And again, I eat some food to help with the defense. A slight defense against the dark arts. The forage buff improves your efficiency with an axe, so let's see before and after using a basic axe and a gum tree. Comes to 8 hits, so let's drink some wattle brew to buff up and try again. And this time we'll take it down to 5 hits. Oh, and we get a bonus beehive. Sweet. Bonus tip. Break these open with a net ready to catch a queen bee to make a bee house. As you'd expect, there's a mining buff which, like Popeye, gives you extra strength. Like the gum tree, it takes 8 strikes of the pickaxe to break this copper ore. Then again, some more wattle brew which gives us that extra ability for mining too. This time, hitting this copper ore takes us down to 5 hits. Not bad. There are a couple of other buffs which are a bit more invisible, these being the fishing buff, which helps you catch fish and improves your reeling time. Then there's the XP buff, which increases your experience points, which is another one of those gaming terms. This one's great as it allows you to level up in farming, hunting, mining, whatever you're doing at that point in time, and increases the figures as you get at the end of the day. Let's cover off the new ones which we touched on a couple earlier. The diligent buff, which avoids your tools getting damaged. There's the other brother, which is the charged buff. It keeps your power tools like the dirt printer and compactor from losing charge. Neat. The swimming buff is a new one too, which keeps you away from animals like your wife. Just joking, Mrs. G. We covered off the sitting buff and well-rested buff earlier too. Now here are my recommended foods for each of these buffs, taking into account how hard some of the ingredients are to get. Feel free to take a screenshot and I'll include a link to my Google Drive for the others. As promised earlier, here are my go-to food combinations for given situations. If you're taking on an alpha, early game I'd go for cooked croco meat with meat on a stick for defense and regen, and cooked saltwater fish for stamina and hunting buff. For mid to late game, I'd go with a hearty stew which gives you a bump in health and stamina bars, good regen, along with hunting and defense for 20 minutes. Spread some of any jam in there as well, which will speed you up too. If you're out and about mining or logging, a wattle brew is as basic as you need to melt rocks like butter and slice through wood like paper. Since it does both mining and foraging, I often use that in the mines at times too. Taking to terraforming around your island, you'll want to move quick and keep charge, so I'd keep some sparkling soup which you can get from boiling 2 thunder sacks in the billy can or the new cooking kettles, which makes it even faster. I'd couple this with some banana jam, which are quick and cheap to make and keeps your energy up. When you're fishing, particularly for a fishing comp, early game I'd go with cooked prawn or yabby, as they're really easy to catch and cook. It's really quick. Mid game, the jelly brew lasts a little bit longer, but it takes a while to make in a keg. When I'm down in the mines, early game I'd go with a wattle brew to give you a stamina boost and regen along with foraging and mining. Add on some easily made meat on a stick for some decent health and stamina regen, plus defense buff. Throw in some cooked saltwater and freshwater fish to give you hunting and defense buff respectively. Mid to late game, I'd recommend eating a lot burger which lasts for 60 minutes in real life. Even with a silver pocket watch to slow down time, it'll last the whole day. This gives me defense and diligence so I don't have to carry extra tools. I'd combine that with a prime roast which lasts just as long and has amazing numbers for health and stamina. Plus it gives me a hunting buff. Throw in some pavlova for dessert and that'll layer on some XP buff and speed buff. If you've got any other great combos, don't keep them to yourself, let us know in the comments. For more tips on the Breezy Autumn update, here's a playlist for you and welcome to the new members of AG Nation.